Good afternoon. In this chapter, we shall discuss the price elasticity of demand. According to Keynes' law of demand, there is inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, which means that when price increases, quantity demanded decreases, and vice versa. In this chapter, we shall measure quantitatively that if price increases by a certain percentage, by what percentage the quantity demanded will decrease. So let's start from the term elasticity. By elasticity, we measure how much one economic variable responds to changes in another economic variable. There can be different variables which respond to changes in other variables. For example, there could be money elasticity of supply, there could be demand elasticity, price elasticity, income elasticity. So by elasticity, we simply mean that how one variable respond due to change in an other variable. In price elasticity of demand, we have two variable. One is price and second is the demand. So we measure the response of change in demand due to change in price. So formally speaking, PED is the responsiveness of quantity demanded to a change in price measured by dividing the change in quantity demanded by the change in percentage change in price. So the numerator of price elasticity of demand is percentage change in quantity demanded and the denominator is percentage change in price. Quantitatively, we calculate the percentage change in quantity demanded by Q2 minus Q1 divided by Q1 plus Q2 divided by 2. Then whole this whole percentage is divided by percentage change in price, which is measured by P2 minus P1 divided by P1 plus P2 over 2. So here what we need to know is that the numerator is change in quantity and change in price, while the denominators are average quantity and average price. Because average is a measure of mid, so we call this formula midpoint formula of price elasticity of demand. We can also calculate the price elasticity of demand if we have the graph. We draw point 1 and in this graph we have 3 as P1 and this 3 is Q1, and then price in decreases to 1 and quantity demanded increases to 5, so P2 will be 1 and Q2 will be 5. So P price 1 3, quantity 1 3, price 2 1 and quantity 2 is 5. We put these number in the above formula which we have just seen. I will show you again this formula and we will find out the answer of PED. Now when we have calculated the percentage change in price and percentage change in quantity demanded, and we have divided the percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in price, our answer can be more than 1, less than 1, or exactly 1. So we will ignore the sign because PD will always be, or more, at least in most of the cases, will be negative because of inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Therefore, uh, we will look at the absolute value of PED, and if the answer of PED is more than 1, we will call it elastic demand. Demand is elastic when the percentage change in quantity demanded is greater than the percentage change in price. So the absolute value of PED is greater than 1, we'll call it elastic demand. If percentage change in price is bigger than the percentage change in demand, then the formula will result in a negative value of PED, which will be less than, sorry, not necessarily negative, it should be less than 1 absolute value. So if the absolute value of PED is less than 1, we'll call it inelastic demand. And if percentage change in quantity demanded and percentage change in price both are equal, then we'll call it unit demand. So let me link these three concepts with the formula of PED again. Now, this is the formula. If this part percentage change in quantity demanded is bigger than the percentage change in price, answer will be bigger than 1, and we shall call it uh, elastic demand. If percentage change in quantity demanded, which is numerator in this formula, is lower than the percentage change in price, which is denominator, answer will obviously be less than 1, and we will call it inelastic demand. And if both numerator and denominator are equal to 1, then we shall call it unit elastic demand. Now let's discuss with the uh, help of some demand curves. In this graph, we have two demand curves. One is D1 and the second demand curve is D2. Point A is the original point, and it lies on both D1 and D2. So we can say that this 30 is P1, which is original price, and at a price of 30, quantity demanded is 16 on both curves, D1 and D2. When price decreases from 30 to 20, the quantity demanded on D1 increases from 16 to 28, while quantity demanded increases from 16 to 20 on second demand curve, that is D2. If we put these values in our formula and calculate the price elasticity of demand, we will see that D1 is more elastic than D2. Why? Because there is same percentage change in the price from 30 to 20 in both cases D1 and D2. But when we were at D2, the change in the quantity demanded is bigger than the change in the quantity demanded in case of D2. For example, in D2, so Q2 is 28, Q1 is 16, difference is 12. So 12 is bigger than the difference between 16 and 20, which is just 4. So D1 will be more elastic than D2. Thus, here we conclude that flatter curves will always be more elastic than the steeper curve because D1 is flatter than D2 and D2 is steeper than D1. Again, D1 is elastic between point A and B because the change in quantity demanded is bigger than the percentage change in price. D2 is inelastic between point A and C because percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in price. Now, there are two extremes. One is perfectly inelastic demand, and the second extreme is perfectly elastic demand. Perfectly inelastic demand curve is the case where demand does not respond towards change in the price. Thus, the answer of PED will be equal to 0. However, perfectly inelastic demand curve is a case where quantity demanded is infinitely responsive to price and the price elasticity of demand equals infinity. Here we will summarize the concept that if demand is elastic and it means that PED is greater than 1. This means that if price cut by is 40% and there is 40% cut in the price, it will result in 55% increase in the quantity demanded. So we can say that in case of elastic demand, when PED is greater than 1, then the response of quantity demanded will be bigger than the percentage change in price. However, if it is inelastic, then a 40% cut in the price will increase only 22% increase in the quantity demanded. So thus, percentage change in quantity demanded is lower than the percentage change in price. In such case, which you can see in this graph as well. So we will call it inelastic demand curve. And when it is unit elastic, there is 40% cut in the price and there is 40% increase in the quantity demanded, thus percentage change in quantity demanded is equal to percentage change in the price, and answer of PED will be equal to 1, and we shall call it, this is unit elastic demand. Perfectly elastic, we have a horizontal line, straight horizontal line, and any increase in price causes quantity demanded to fall to zero. Therefore, this graph, this line is known as perfectly elastic demand curve. And if it is straight horizontal line, we call it perfectly inelastic. And any increase or decrease in price leaves no effect on the demand. Whether it is price of 20, 30 or 40, demand still remains 16. Thus, demand does not respond towards change in the price, and we call it that this is having, this product is having perfectly inelastic demand curve, and this shape is like I. So just to remember, to you can also say that I for inelastic and I for, and graph of the demand curve is like I. So when it will be like I, we will call it perfectly inelastic demand curve. Then on the next few slides, there are practice questions on this slide. You can see that price is 2 dirham, so P1 is 2 dirham. A shop sells 100 chocolate bars, so Q1 is 100 in a day. If the price is 3 dirham, then P2 is 3. Shop sells 45 chocolate bars, so Q2 is 45. So you can simply solve it by putting these values in the formula. On next slide again, there is another example for practice purpose, which you can solve it. And on the next slide, again, there is a third example in which P1 is 900,000 and Q1 is 10, while P2 is 1.2 million and Q2 is 5. By putting these values in the formula, you can easily find out the values of price elasticity of demand. If the answer of absolute value of price elasticity of demand will be greater than 1, it will be elastic demand. Less than 1, it will be inelastic demand. And if the PED absolute value is equal to 1, we will call it unit elastic demand. Thank you very much. Uh, in the next slide, in the next tutorial, I shall talk about the determinants of price elasticity of demand, and I shall talk about income elasticity of demand, cross price elasticity of demand, and price elasticity of supply. Till then, thank you so much. Just subscribe the channel so that whenever I upload any new video, you get the notification. Thank you. Have a good time. Assalamu alaikum.